If you're interested in the behind the scenes of running an online business, this is going to be the episode for you. Now, this is different from what we normally do. For those of you who are interested in entrepreneurship, particularly in the content space, you're going to enjoy this. If you want the behind the scenes, stick around. Welcome to the Afford Anything podcast, the show that understands you can afford anything but not everything. Every choice that you make is a trade-off. And that applies to your money, your time, your focus, your energy, to any limited resource you need to manage. This is a show about how to optimize those limited resources. And this is a show that creates information in 5 categories: financial psychology, increasing your income, investing, real estate, and entrepreneurship. It's fire with 2 eyes. Today, we're going to talk about the letter E. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship. And with me is former financial planner, Joe Saul-Sehy. What's up, Joe?
I don't know which camera to look at. We got multiple cameras. We're in this awesome studio in Boise, Idaho, which
Yes.
we'll get into. And I don't know where to look. Hey, everybody.
Joe, this is going to be a short episode, so let's pack this with actionable information first. And I'm just going to tell you what stood out to me from some of the things I've learned in the past couple of days. One is the importance of internal processes. Have a Notion document, have SOPs for everything. If something requires more than 3 steps or it gets repeated more than 3 times, it needs an SOP. I've always been resistant to that idea because I want my team to have creative freedom. But without brand guides, style guides, without processes and workflows, everything gets chaotic and it becomes really difficult to grow. So one of the major takeaways that I've learned in the past couple of days is that even for creative content, even for TikTok videos, the production of Instagram videos, even things that should have creative freedom can be better enjoyed inside of a container, inside of some procedural boundaries.
Yeah, I remember I interviewed Don Hahn, who's a Disney producer who did lots of their big movies, Beauty and the Beast. He said that if you don't have this fencing around creative time, nothing ever gets done. And we certainly saw that, over the last couple of days, that if you want to get something done, put some fencing around it, put what your end goal is on it, and build your story arc from there. What I also took from that, though, there's 2 sides to any business. There is the creative side and there is the business side. And really, if you're an entrepreneur, no matter what you do, if you're making donuts or widgets, or if you're doing what we do, you're really, Paula, you're wearing 2 hats.
Yeah.
And so I love what you bring up about the SOPs on the creative side, because we think, creative time is just go color outside the lines, right?
Right.
And it completely is not. There should be this melding of the 2. Because your ultimate goal for you and me is, the way we state it, starting this summer on Stacking Benjamins, is we want to give people confidence by building their competence. And it's like a wheel.
Right.
The more competent you are, the more confident you are to do the next step, which gives you the confidence then to learn the next competency to take the next step. Certainly that happened for me the last day and a half.
Yeah.
Is that I feel so much more competent over the last day and a half. And I'm a person who's afraid of everything. I'm afraid to network. I'm afraid to go meet people. You and I talk about that every conference we go to. Paul's always like, let's go meet people. I'm like, let's go hide in the back.
Yeah. Joe is the introvert and I'm the extrovert. So when we're here, it's a good pairing, I think.
It totally is.
I always look over and I see you having like a one-on-one conversation with someone in a corner of the room.
Right. And Paula is the queen. Waving, and for people just listening to the audio, she's waving like the queen in a group of people.
Oh, by the way, for those of you who are listening to this via audio, I highly recommend that you go to YouTube, because we are physically in the same room together, which is rare. Joe, you and I never get to record like this. Yeah. We unfortunately always
the restraining order and everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a great visual. I mean, what a beautiful room. So
we both use the same. We should give a shout out to the people who have the studio. We use Kit for our emails for the Afford Anything and the Stacking Benjamins emails. And they just built this beautiful studio for us.
Yeah.
Which is also interesting, because this is another thing, no matter what business you're in, Paula, the thing I got from here, Cody Sanchez on the main stage actually said specifically this, but I've been thinking it since the beginning of the conference, which is, there are so many people in business who are all about me, 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 me.
Right.
And the whole core of this business, and this studio makes the people at Kit, Nathan Barry and his entire team, makes them $0.
Right.
It costs them a bunch of money. So why the hell would you do something that costs you a bunch of money? Because if you're going to do business better, it starts with relationships. And you know what? I'm 56 years old. This has been the key learning of my entire life, is that the more you have these relationships, the better your business works.
Right. You know, somebody left a comment on one of my social posts asking, why do you even go to these? Why you can learn this information online? And it's because face-to-face is where relationships form.
It totally is. And didn't you feel that during the pandemic?
Oh my goodness, yeah. You know, the pandemic was really a wake-up call because the difference between my pre-pandemic life versus my pandemic life was actually not that different. There's that meme going around at the beginning where it's a face that's like, when you figure out that what other people call quarantine is what you call your normal life.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I was like, oh my goodness. It was such a wake-up call for me because I'd been for years prior to the pandemic in this headspace of, well, we can do everything remotely. So I would just have days and days of never leaving my apartment, you know, only sending emails. I was on Zoom before Zoom was cool. I assume Zoom is cool now. Maybe it's not.
Coolish.
Yeah. But I was on Zoom before Zoom was part of the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
And because that was possible, and because everybody else, when I told them, oh, I work from home, people who didn't have that experience really glorified it. They're, oh, that must be incredible. I would love to do that. And so all of the struggles that I had with it, the feelings of loneliness, I figured were unique to me because all of the people who had never experienced it talked about it as though it must be only upside. And so when the pandemic happened, I realized two things. One was that I needed to be much more proactive about being face-to-face with people. And the second was that all of the loneliness and the struggles that I felt by virtue of doing remote work, it's so much harder to collaborate, especially creative collaboration with a fully remote team. And I always thought that those were problems that were unique to me, that I was somehow deficient at managing a remote team. And then when I saw that other people were experiencing those same challenges, that was a big wake-up call.
One of the speakers on the main stage yesterday, John, I'm not going to get his last name.
Yeah.
And John's amazing. John basically was singing off a playbook that I like, which is Austin Kleon's Steal Like an Artist. He was talking about how great people steal like an artist, but he also talked about how there's no mistaking that throughout history, great people were found in clusters.
Right.
And so if you want to enter the zeitgeist, thought leadership in any industry, whatever industry you're in, you have to go where the other thought leaders are. Because people think that greatness is built on the back of one person creator they discovered. It's actually built on the back of some other idea.
Right.
You and I being in a room together, you're able to throw out an idea. Then I throw out an idea, then you throw out an idea. We take this dumb thing and all of a sudden it becomes brilliant.
Right.
But
Creative collaboration.
And by the way, we can do that online, and certainly you and I do with our teams. I mean, we have a creative meeting for Stacking Benjamins. We have a professional comedian, Lisa Curry, who helps us with the episodes. And it's good, but it does not replace face-to-face.
Yeah.
Just it's so powerful being here. And I was very afraid of, like any conference I go to, and I speak on main stages, and I'm still afraid of being here, afraid of networking. And now I've made so many new friends. I've made so many new contacts. I've got so many more people to collaborate with.
Right.
You have to go to industry conferences.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't not go.
Yeah, it's an essential cost. So the guy's name, John, his last name is Youshai. For those of you, if you're on YouTube, which I hope you are, because this is really, watch this video on YouTube.
Yeah.
So go on YouTube and look up Bob Fosse, 1969, and compare that to Beyonce's video of
the three of them.
All the single ladies.
All the single ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same.
Yeah.
It is the same.
Exactly.
It is a quote ripoff, but it's not.
Right. Exactly. Because one, it was done with permission. Done with...
She references and pays homage in interviews to the fact that she did it.
Yeah,
She's like, I saw this cool thing and I thought we could pay homage and do the same thing.
Right.
Which is super.
Exactly. It's the distinction between copy and paste versus, as John calls it, copy with taste.
Right.
Right.
Which is funny because I'm a big Austin Kleon fan. I've had him on Stacking Benjamins twice. I love his analogy, which is similar, which is remixing, paying homage versus plagiarism, just out and out plagiarism.
Right. So Nathan Barry today said something that I think is important for this audience to hear. When we talk about entrepreneurship, and part of the reason that we're doing this behind the scenes conversation right now is because we really want to encourage those of you who are interested in starting businesses to start a business. But the premise behind starting a business, this is something that I have never directly articulated, and I thought he said it very, very well. The premise behind starting a business is that you can make money, and making money is a skill. And so this is what Nathan Barry said. I'm paraphrasing. It's not a direct quote, but he said, making money is a skill. You can master it just like you can master playing an instrument or a sport, right? And that's something I've never directly articulated that idea, but that is the foundational premise really for why personal finance brands like Afford Anything and Stacking Benjamins even exist, because the fundamental underlying premise is that making money is a skill, and it is a skill that can be learned, taught and learned.
Yeah, you don't have to be unique.
Right.
You have to have the ability to learn. And I like our first speaker, in fact, who was in the studio just before we were. She just walked out today. Sherry, do you have Sherry's last name?
Ooh, I'll find
I don't. But Sherry runs a grilling company, and she had a great message about how failure is the game.
Right.
About how she was afraid of failing and failing was bad. And now she knows that if you're an entrepreneur, failing is a part of it. You know what I thought through that, Paula?
What's that?
And I think this is a great lesson for not just entrepreneurs, but for all of us. I never learned anything when I was high-fiving myself on the top of a mountain. Like there was zero learning. Don't get me wrong. I love those moments.
Yeah.
Those are great moments to celebrate. But all my key learnings in my entire life have been those times, and they felt like crap at the time. They were horrible when I was failing, when things were going really bad. I came back stronger. My business came back stronger. Those are the key times. And failure is a thing that we should not just realize is a part of life, which is what she said on the main stage. But I think it's actually something we should look forward to.
Right. And there's also wisdom in learning from the failures of others, right? So
Agreed.
Because failing in real life is expensive tuition.
Yes.
But if you make something of it, it's tuition that you will make back over time, but it is expensive tuition. So you can reduce your tuition bill by virtue of learning from both the failures and the successes of others.
And that's another key about coming to conferences, is that every speaker started off with, I messed this up. Like this is the conference speech.
Right.
I messed this up. Here's how not to mess this up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just as I was saying, one of the things I really messed up for years in running Afford Anything was having a fully remote team in which we never met face to face. You know, I think that was a huge mistake. I think it set us back years. So
yeah. The thing that I messed up was Stacking Benjamins being a podcast. I remember 5 years ago speaking with our mutual friend, Brian Preston, who I think was on Afford Anything, also on Stacking Benjamins. Our good friend, Brian said, I'm going to work on my YouTube channel. I'm going to broaden this because we're a financial education company. And I said, good for you. I'm going to make a great podcast that I love, and you go do this video thing. And what's interesting about that is people learn so many different ways. And if we truly are a company that is trying to give people confidence and more competence, then we should be meeting our stackers wherever they are. And I realized that much later, when the algorithms had already slowed down. Brian now has, I think, 500,000 people following the Money Guys. He also has capability like this. They have a wonderful studio in Franklin, Tennessee, and we're getting there. But had I had the thought process more of working from what do people need from me versus this one thing that I'm comfortable with, like sometimes growth is uncomfortable, but being uncomfortable the first time is something that we need to get used to.
Right. Yeah. It's not about what you want. It's about how to best serve.
And think about that. When is growth not uncomfortable?
Right. Exactly. That's something that I tell my team. Our North Star is serving our audience, and we can't be unmoored from reality, you know, but fundamentally, like, my audience is more important. The afforders are more important than any sponsor. They're more important than any other stakeholder in this. And that sounds all well and good in theory, but when push comes to shove, and I've got a sponsor that's pushing me to do something that I think is just not in the best interests of the afforders, I'll tell the sponsor to go F off. Sorry, we don't need your money.
We talked about this Wednesday night, and the idea of mentorship, no matter where you're at in your career. A guy I've got mentorship is younger than me. I don't know very well. I mean, I talk to him every other week practically, but a guy named Jordan Harbinger.
Yeah.
And Jordan, I remember early in this quote second career that I'm in, said, you owe nobody anything except your audience.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. You know,
And that has resonated ever since. So I'm on board. I mean, the afforders, another, by the way, behind the scenes thing, Paula Pant not only coined the word afforders, she also coined the word stackers a long time ago. Day after, I think it was after a big birthday celebration Paula had, and we were at breakfast, and you were like, you should call them stackers.
Thank you. Thank you. I remember the conversation because you at the time were listening to all of these voices in the digital marketing space who were
Build a funnel.
Yeah, build a funnel, build a funnel. And we had that breakfast and I was like, screw that.
Yeah.
Forget all of those get rich quick, build a funnel, conversion optimization, blah, 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 blah. Like those guys are not going to be around in 10 years, right? Do you want to build something where you're maybe going to make a couple of pennies today and you'll have nothing, no mission, no legacy, no purpose, no community? Or do you want to build something sustainable, right? And like what you're building, Joe, is a community and they are your community of stackers.
What really impressed me during that conversation that morning was much more being true to your brand. And we don't have a funnel brand.
Right.
Like that's not, if my brand was a funnel brand, then I'd be fine with a funnel, but that's not who we are.
Yeah.
So we're much more dad jokes and comedy, and let's lighten the temperature so you feel like you can screw it up and you're going to be fine. As you know, most of the time, go open a Roth IRA, mess it up, and you'll learn from it. You know what? You're not going to die.
And so part of that also then goes back to being really careful about who you take advice from, being very discerning about that. I just interviewed David Novak, who is he's a former CEO of Yum Brands, which is the parent company of KFC, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and Habit Burger Grill.
He's the grandfather of fourth meal.
Yeah. And he said something that I thought was very, really important during this interview. It was a long, almost 2-hour interview. And one of the things that he talked about was being really discerning about who you take advice from, because there are a lot of people with opinions, but it takes a lot of skill and wisdom to have cultivated opinions. There's a distinction between Yoda and anybody who's not Yoda, right? And so you've got a community of stackers who you don't have some like digital marketing funnel. Like I've been very careful about screening out and eliminating all of those, the voices that are in that space, because it's an adjacent space and it's there and I just don't like it. And I don't play that game. Like I'm not.
Well, and I think that's knowing your North Star.
Yeah.
You knowing what you're doing, and it's fine. It could be good for you, but it's not good for everybody. I mean, that's why I like timelining out your financial plan, is because once you know what the goal is, then Paula, this is good, but it's not part of my plan.
Right.
This can be good, not part of my plan. Like it's so difficult in a vacuum to decide which way I should go. But once I know what that North Star is, I think it's much easier to screen out the voices. But seriously, as you're talking, I'm thinking about all the times I took bad advice.
Yeah.
And I went and I did it. Like earlier in my career, my 20s and 30s, I took some pretty bad advice. And had I not done that, had I been more discerning,
Right.
I would have been much further along.
Right.
Much more quickly.
Right. By the way, the barbecue person that you were talking about.
Oh, she's wonderful.
So her name is Susie Bullock.
Susie Bullock.
Susie Bullock.
Look her up.
And her barbecue brand is Hey Grill, Hey.
So good.
Which is such a great name.
It is.
Yeah.
It is so good. And her being honest about failure and being hilarious about why she goes on a television show and decides to dye her hair the night before.
Right. Box tie her hair.
Just the nightmare.
So she was talking about how when she started her company, she was a stay-at-home mom. So their family, they've got 3 kids. The family was completely reliant on her husband's income. He was an accountant. He hated his job to such an extent. I think I can repeat this because she stated it publicly
on the main stage.
On the main stage. By the way, here's a trigger warning. We're about to discuss something triggering.
This is some emotional trauma right here.
So if you don't want to hear how I finished the sentence, then fast forward. He hated his job to such an extent that one day he was on his way to work and he called her and he said, rather than drive to work, I just want to drive off of the freeway. Like, he was at that point where he was actually having suicidal ideations. That's how much his job was draining from him. And when she
was
heard
crying
that,
on the stage, just retelling it.
yeah. And when she heard that, it really fueled her to develop another source of income so that the family could rely on this nascent fledgling idea of a business, right? At that point, it was kind of she called it a jobby. It was more of a hobby than a job. But that really lit the fire under her to be like, I've got to grow this. I've got to make this a viable thing so that I can retire my husband.
The idea of if you serve others other than serve yourself, I think now we've talked about that indirectly about 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
It's always more fulfilling to serve somebody else.
Yeah.
You could feel how happy she was when he got to quit his job because of her.
Right.
Like, how great is that for her to be able to serve his goal? But also, how many times in our community have we heard people that either came to your brand or mine because they wanted to quit their job?
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to chart your own path and learn and find that fulfillment also is just it's been a powerful day and a half. My head seriously hurts in the best way possible. I know I've heard this from stackers before. You've heard it from afforders before. They're like, I'd love to go to an industry conference. I can't afford it. If at all possible, you need to find a way. If at all possible. And I know for some, FinCon that you and I go to, they have scholarships to encourage people to go to that conference. Podcast Movement has sponsorships for people. You can apply for those. Find a way to get yourself on a bus to Boise, Idaho, or wherever the heck the conference is and go.
Yeah, yeah. One thing that we're going to prioritize and afford anything, probably not in 2024. So this is like 2025 plans.
Is this something you decided in the last couple of days?
Oh, no. This is something we've been talking about for months already internally.
Because I want to ask you that too. Is there anything that we can announce that's going to change?
Actually, yes.
Yeah, but let's go through this one first. Yeah. And then we'll do that and we'll call it a day.
One of the things that we're going to prioritize is more in-person events with the afforder community. So workshops, retreats, just face-to-face in-person events, live in-person events.
Boston was a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there is such a hunger and such a need for face-to-face connection that I think that's a really important element of serving the community.
Well, and I love that idea because through our Stacking Benjamins 4 meetups this summer, I love the fact that getting like-minded people in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I could just facilitate that and go off into my own corner as the introvert that I am, like I've succeeded. And we saw that in Boston together with our joint meetup, seeing all these people that didn't know each other. And that's great.
Right.
That is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. So we were just in Boston, like is that 2 weeks ago?
It feels like yesterday and 6 months ago, all wrapped into one.
Exactly.
We're on the East Coast and now we're in Boise.
Yeah.
And by the way, how do we see each other twice in a month?
Yeah. I've seen you in Boston and we're in Boise. We're just hitting all the next we'll go to Billings and Bozeman.
That's right. We check all the boxes.
Check all the B towns.
Yeah. A thing that's going to change for just based on the last couple days, what's something that your afforders can look forward to?
So we have a newsletter for a long time. You've heard me say, subscribe to our show notes. You'll get a synopsis of every episode. But we've never really tried to create a best-in-class, like absolute top quality newsletter. And partially it's because we've had fragmented attention because we have the VIP list and they get specific updates about real estate. And we have show notes, but that only goes to about 1/8 of our total newsletter subscribers, specifically the subset of people who want synopses of episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had all of this fragmented attention where we're creating lots of copy for like specialized segments of our audience. So we're scrapping all of that. We're done with that. We will still have podcast show notes, but they will be incorporated into a much, much more robust newsletter that goes to everybody, that we really put blood, sweat, and tears into. Our 2 big areas of focus are YouTube and the newsletter. YouTube, we're absolute beginners. We're learning what we're doing. The implementation gap between what I know needs to improve and the actual improvement it's a mile. But the newsletter is the other major area of focus. A while ago, we rolled out this newsletter that we called First Principles, all about thinking from first principles. And we laid out these sections of it. At that time, it was 4 elements: FIRE, financial psychology, investing, real estate, and entrepreneurship. We're adding another I to that FIRE. So now it's going to be 5 pillars.
FIRE.
FIRE, yeah. So the other I is income. Or if you really want to add more I's, it's increasing income.
Yeah.
Financial psychology, income, investing, real estate, and entrepreneurship. We're going to speak to that in our newsletters. We're going to, you know what? Should I just go ahead and, I haven't announced this yet. All right. So when it comes to increasing income, we're building out another course. Your First Rental Property has been our flagship course. We haven't built a new one since we released Your First Rental Property in 2019. So First Principles, the newsletter, that's coming. We're putting a lot of attention there. affordanything.com/newsletter to go sign up. It's free.
And by the way, second best newsletter out there, stackingbenjamins.com/201 is probably the best. And actually, seriously, that pain you're going through now, you know this. We went through that pain ourselves to create the newsletter that I would want to open.
Perfect. Yeah. We're revamping the First Principles newsletter. It's going to be the newsletter that I would want to open.
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing, and speaking to one of the 2 I's in FIRE, income, increasing your income, we're releasing a new course. We're in production right now. I'm not going to tell you the name yet. We haven't. I'm going to file a trademark for the name before I say it publicly because it's so good. It's so good. Filing it as soon as I file the trademark, I will tell you what the name is.
We talk about a lot of stuff. I don't even know the name.
Yeah.
We talk about everything. I don't know the name.
Yeah. But the course is about how to negotiate for anything, including how to negotiate your salary, how to negotiate for a car, how to negotiate when you buy a couch on Facebook Marketplace. It's increasing your income by virtue of asking for a raise.
And written from an incredibly professional point of view. I have seen behind the scenes of the course, and you had some incredibly professional help.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Absolutely professional help.
Yeah.
It was scripted by a person who taught negotiations at Columbia.
Yeah.
So,
never heard of it. No idea what that is.
Podunk Little School. Yeah.
Our big reveal is that at Stacking Benjamins for the first 13 years of the podcast, we've always just done the podcast. And from time to time, we will have a cohort. We might have a course that's a live course from time to time. We've never truly been a financial education company. And we are turning the company upside down. We're not going to be a company that is a podcast that's known for that happens to sometimes be financial education. We'll be a financial education company that helps people through videos, podcasts, but also increasingly other tools. So we're going to have a suite of 5 off-the-shelf guides that people can purchase if you just have a set thing that you need. We also are going to have a signature course that we're working on with a professor of education from Arizona State University. We're building that signature course. So if you want to build your own financial plan, you can do that. And then the only piece of it that our stackers have already seen before, once a year, people can go through my book Stacked through 10 sessions that are 90 minutes each with me in a very small group. And we had a great time doing that. So if on one end, you just feel like, you know what, I just need this problem solved, you get it. If you want to do a course on your own, that'll be our signature product. You get it. But if you truly want the white glove, hands-on, I will coach you, we're going to do that once a year.
Wow.
And that's it. That's going to be the Stacking Benjamin suite of products.
Wow.
So that's my
incredible.
Big thing.
I
Yeah.
love the idea of people going through your book chapter by chapter with you.
It was so fun.
Yeah.
It was so fun. And the wows, the ahas people got
That's incredible.
was pretty powerful.
That's incredible.
So, well, sounds like we got nothing going on, Paula.
Page 13 of your book, by the way, is the best page.
Who's on it? Who's on that page?
Just if you own the book Stacked, flip to page 13.
It's so great. This has been so fun.
Yeah.
Big takeaway, and then we'll say goodbye.
For anyone who wants to start a business or who is running a business, know your mission. Have a very, very clear mission. Who do you serve? What is the outcome that you want? How do you help them? And make that mission your North Star. That North Star is the litmus test for every decision that you make.
Love that. Mine is almost, Paula, the same takeaway I get every time. This has been a phenomenal conference. You and I go to quite a few conferences. It's been amazing.
Yeah.
Mine is, I know that a lot of you out there are afraid of starting the next thing. You're afraid of the next move. You're afraid, like I am, of going to the conference where you don't know anybody. Feel the fear and do it anyway. It's okay to feel the fear, but go do it. Because I'm now on the other side of that fear of just this weekend. And it just reminds me that had I not gotten on that plane and come here with all these people, the wonderful takeaways I've gotten that Paul and I have gone through here would have never happened. So it's okay to feel the fear, but push through and do the thing that you know you need to do. And you know what you need to do. You know it. I mean,
right.
You already know it. You're like, yeah, go do it. Yeah. All right. I'm Joe Saul-Sehy.
I'm Paula Pant.
We'll see you next time on Afford Anything or Stacking Benjamins.
I'll meet you in the next episode.